Algeria, a land of uncertain future and troubled past, once a colony of Rome, later a pawn for the Vandals, Muslims, and Barbary pirates of the Ottoman Empire. In 1830, the French come to colonize, to civilize, to develop the resources of the sprawling, sun-scorched province on the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. In the century that follows, there is a steady flow of French settlers to Algeria, to the cities of Algiers, Oran, Constantine. By 1950, there are 1 million Europeans in the country, 80% of them Algerian-born. The native population is 10 times as great, 10 million Arabs and Berber tribesmen of the Muslim faith. After World War II, Algeria is gripped by the surging nationalism that sweeps across the African continent, sparking the start in 1954 of guerrilla warfare against the French. Although an endless procession of prisoners is taken, it will be for the French a long, costly, and futile war. For there are always new recruits, more replacements for prisoners rounded up in mountain raids. A leader of the revolutionary movement is Mohammed Ben Bella at Right, who was captured by the French in 1956 and will spend more than 5 years in prison. But he becomes a symbol, a martyr, a hero to millions of Algerians in their bitter struggle for independence. Year by year, the fighting spreads and grows, while thousands die on both sides. Finally, France sends General Raoul Salan, her most decorated soldier, to crush the rebels once and for all. It cannot be done. The French are fighting an enemy that hits and runs and hits again, always at the unexpected time, the unprotected place. And to carry on this losing war, France must keep half its armed forces in Algeria at a cost of $1 billion a year. In 1958, the topples the Fourth French Republic. In Algiers, rioting crowds demand and win the return to power of General Charles de Gaulle. Beneath the cross of Lorraine that he made famous in World War II, the old soldier visits the troubled land to be hailed as the savior who will crush the rebellion and preserve the union of France and Algeria. When instead he promises free elections and self-determination, these same people feel that de Gaulle has betrayed them. Two years later, in 1960, the discontent flares into open defiance. Paving blocks are torn up and turned into barricades. The insurgents, with army support, take command of half of Algiers, dig in and vow no surrender until de Gaulle backs down on his plan for self-determination. France teeters on the brink of civil war, but de Gaulle stands fast. And finally, the barricades come down. The revolt is ended, and Algeria has taken a decisive step toward independence. The pendulum of power in Algeria is passing slowly, inexorably, out of the hands of the French. But there still remains a hard core of resistance, determined at all costs to keep Algeria French. Their leader is General Salan, and the very same military men who helped de Gaulle to power. Now they appeal to their countrymen to follow them, to go underground, to wage a terrorist war of their own. Hero Salan becomes a hunted criminal. For 2 years, the secret army organization, as it is called, carries on its campaign of death and destruction against the Muslim population. The purpose is to provoke the nationalists into retaliation, to trigger a full-scale rebellion, a rebellion that will force France to take sides with the OAS. The tide of freedom cannot be halted, and so the dreams of the OAS die in their own flames. Independence for the Algerians means flight for thousands of fearful Europeans, many of them descendants of French settlers who have lived here for generations. Refugees who leave behind them a legacy of closed factories, abandoned farms, shuttered stores, and, most touching of all, the scars of their shattered, uprooted lives. In July 1962, France and Algeria vote on the referendum that will be the final, formal step in breaking their century-old bonds. The results of the voting are a foregone conclusion, an overwhelming endorsement of General de Gaulle and his plea for full Algerian independence. France is free at last from the colony and crises that have cost her so dearly. In Algeria, where more than 90% of the voters cast their ballots for independence, the birth of a nation means not the end, but the beginning of new troubles and new dangers. The joy of freedom, the cheers of the crowd, have not even faded away before independent Algeria is plunged into its first crisis. The unrest begins, as in many of the emerging nations of Africa, with a struggle for power between two rival revolutionary leaders. In Algeria, one of these leaders is Ben Keda, premier of the provisional government set up to rule until nationwide elections for a parliament can be held. Ben Keda, who is nicknamed Mr. Everybody, is a moderate, seemingly popular with all the people, a man dedicated to retaining close ties with France and the free world. In a remote village outside Oran is Mohammed Ben Bella, a man who will challenge Ben Keda's leadership. Ben Bella is a radical who says he will accept communist support if necessary to win and stay in power. Ben Bella's strongest supporters are found among the 70,000 men of the Algerian Revolutionary Army, a fighting force equipped with Russian and Czech weapons and indoctrinated by Marxist teachers. Their backing will bring victory to Mohammed Ben Bella. When his seizure of power is complete, the new strong man comes to Algiers to be hailed by the same crowds who, a few short weeks before, had cheered the now all but forgotten Ben Keda. In Algeria's turbulent infancy, Mohammed Ben Bella lays down his guidelines for government: one-party rule, socialization of agriculture and industry, and neutralism in foreign affairs. And so it is that Algeria's first election campaign is merely a pretense. There is but one slate of candidates running for parliament, candidates selected and approved by Ben Bella and his followers. Just as in Iron Curtain countries, voters will be able to only accept or reject the hand-picked candidates. Seldom, if ever, are such nominees turned down. Thus, the flag of an independent nation does not always signal freedom for its people. The Algerians, to whom independence is so new, will find that they and they alone are the guardians of their freedom. They will learn that the path they take, the road they follow, will determine whether, as a nation, as a people, they have achieved true independence and freedom, or whether they have merely exchanged colonialism for a new and more tyrannical form of government.